Hello, BookTube. I had a very fun package to mail out this morning and one other errand to do to visit an old friend, all in the neighborhood of the Brattle Bookshop, and I needed to pick me up, so I went to the Brattle Bookshop yet again. This might seem exorbitant to those of you who maybe go to your used bookstore once a month or something like that, but the Brattle used bookstore here in Boston has an enormous turnover of stock. There were years at a time where I went literally every day. I worked right around the corner, so I would go 6 days a week, and always come away with something. So it doesn't feel exorbitant to me. It was a lovely day, lovely morning, a little chilly for my taste, but still just delightful. I had the shop pretty much to myself, which is kind of the way I like it, and I got a bunch of books. No hardcovers or no paperbacks at all, so the maximum amount of weight, but lots of stuff that I wanted, a lot of stuff that fulfills one of the ideas of the Brattle, which is restock. Not quite the same thing as a second chance. A Brattle second chance is when I get a book in one way or another, either from the Brattle or from a publisher, and I read it and I think, come see, come saw, and then a year or maybe two or maybe more later, I think, boy, I haven't stopped thinking about that book. I really wish I had a copy. It was a mistake to get rid of it. And the Brattle then provides a copy. That is the Brattle giving me a second chance. But restocking is something different. Restocking is when I have a book, I already know that I really like it, I already know that it's a keeper, but it falls apart on me. And it's been my experience that no matter how odd or rare or abstruse that book is, I will see it again at the Brattle Bookshop. Just have to wait long enough, and the Brattle will provide. So, and that happened today a couple of times. The first two things that I got are Robert Benchley collections. Robert Benchley was an Algonquin Round Table wit, a longtime humorist writer for the New Yorker, a son of Worcester, and he wrote. I've never quite been able to get on board with his humor. It captures something. I think it captures something very much of its time, in almost exactly the same register as H.L. Mencken, whose writing I also do not resonate with it in the exact same way, where I know that this stuff is cracking people up, and it just doesn't do it for me at all. It's a certain period, or maybe a certain type of delivery, or maybe a certain worldview, but Benchley and H.L. Mencken and Roy Rogers, Anyway, I thought I would give him another try. I let the Brattle sale lot dictate a lot to me. Everything out there in the sale lot is so cheap that I let it dictate a lot to me. If it has an idea of something that I should revisit, I'm perfectly happy to listen. And I saw there was a bunch of Benchley there. Somebody must have had a whole lot of it. And I didn't want to get a whole lot of it because this is not a case where I feel like I must be wrong. I think I have the measure of Benchley, and that I know what he's doing, and it doesn't amuse me. So I didn't want to get 30 books or anything like that. So I just got two. I got two of his little collections, and I mainly got them for their illustrations. I got After 1903 What? By Robert Benchley, and this is illustrated by the great Goulet S. Williams, who was also an illustrator for the New Yorker, and who is great on his own. He is just fantastic. These are little comic vignettes of the type that Benchley made a whole career out of doing. It's always kind of surprising to me that he should be billed as a humorist when, by all accounts that I have ever read, he was positively grim to know in person. If not grim, if grim is unfair, then certainly not humorous at all. No joie de vivre, no nothing like that. Pretty much as unsmiling and flinty as his famous son. And yet he was a humorist. I also got Benchley Beside Himself, which is even more, after 1903, what was famous. I think Benchley Beside Himself was even more famous. Also illustrated by Glue S. Williams. This one is in really rough shape, but it doesn't matter. This is pretty much all. I have a whole bunch of Benchley in New Yorker anthologies, but this is pretty much all the Benchley that I want on my own. On just as now, if I turn out to be wrong about that, if I read through these things and suddenly I get it. Now that doesn't usually happen. I have tried with authors where I don't get it. I've tried with Mencken, for instance, in his serious religious writing, his Jeremiads Against Religion, figuring if there's ever a place where we're going to coincide, it's going to be there. It's Mencken, it's Thurber, it's Benchley, it's a certain time period. It's neatly circumscribed by world wars. It's neatly circumscribed by the voice and the type of humor, and it just doesn't work on me. And I have tried. If let's say I read these two things and suddenly get Benchley, well, then the Brattle will provide. Then I will encounter more. Then these next two deal. I had to grab them up. They were cheap. One of them was just a gift. One of them is a hardcover by Leslie Charteris of The Saint, Simon Templar, his famous character, the Saint. This is the Saint Around the World, which, if I remember correctly, is late. Is it late? Oh no, 1954. There's some. I think I read this as a mass market paperback. It didn't have this kind of cover. And I think, if I remember correctly, there are some moments in here that are darker than usual for The Saint. But then The Saint is on my list of books to reread in their entirety, series to reread in their entirety. This was on my mind recently. Maybe that was the reason that the Brattle Gods showed it to me. It was on my mind recently because of a discussion that came up on BookTube. Kevin Toll Reads, did one of his Let Me Know videos about predictability in books. And that got me thinking about The Saint, and also about this next character, Nero Wolfe, who Bookless Pete did a response to Kevin's video and mentions Nero Wolfe by Rex Stout. And Zach at the Brattle has heard, he's been very patient, he's heard me go on about Nero Wolfe all of this year. And he found this. He found Nero Wolfe of West 35th Street by William Baring Gould. This was a posthumous book by the great Sherlock Holmes expert. Baring Gould was a great Sherlock Holmes expert. But he loved Nero Wolfe too. He loved the Nero Wolfe stories. And I read this once upon a time, but I read it back before I had done this systematic reread of all the Nero Wolfe novels. So I'm going to get a lot more out of it now. That old copy that I had is long gone. I think I might have hauled it on this channel like 9 years ago or something like that. But this is just a study of Nero Wolfe. This is infamous for one particular thing. Baring Gould had Sherlock Holmes on the brain. He was an incredible Sherlock Holmes fan, a super fan as we would call him today, a Sherlock Holmes authority. And in this book, he wonders aloud, just as if he were alone in the room, that maybe Nero Wolfe is the son of Sherlock Holmes. And that has also led Nero Wolfe fans to speculate that Nero Wolfe is not the son of Sherlock Holmes, but the son of Mycroft Holmes. Because Nero Wolfe is huge. He's a gigantic figure. Holmes is we are told that Dr. Watson is thin as a rail and brown as a nut, but we're given the strong impression that Holmes is also extremely hawkish and lean. Whereas his brother Mycroft, who's even better at detection than he is enormous and also sedentary. He goes from his quarters to his club to his office and back again, and almost never goes anywhere else. He himself says that he doesn't have his brother Sherlock's active nature. He can't throw himself onto a rug with a microscope or a magnifying glass or whatnot. And that's led a lot of people to think that Nero Wolfe, who is that way himself, is the son of Mycroft Holmes. But I think a lot of this is going to hit home to me that didn't the last time I read it. just because I wasn't at all as familiar with the books as I thought. Okay, this is a gimmick, and I get it, and it is a gimmick, but I think I get it a lot better now. So this book is probably going to have a lot more resonance. And then there's this thing. This is by Robert DeMaria, and I spotted it and wanted it right away. I have a million books on this subject, this particular person, but the person is Samuel Johnson, and Dr. Johnson had a way. Has had a way for 100 years since his death of sparking prismatic biographical interpretations. So Boswell the editor, Boswell the lexicographer, in addition to full-length biographies, which are pretty tough to do, especially since the great one, there's Boswell's Life of Johnson, which is widely regarded as a great book, a classic. I certainly love it. But also there's Jonathan Bates' book. His biography of Johnson is also great. Just, it's everything that Boswell is, plus historical accountability. But Johnson also inspires sliver biographies, and that's what DeMaria does. He does Johnson and the Life of Reading. So this book is just about Johnson the reader, which is great. I never read this. I don't think I've ever read it. This is from, I think, the 1990s. 1997. I don't think that I've ever read this. So I'm sure that it will have stuff in it that will be of interest to me. I have a whole bunch of these type of books about Dr. Johnson. I have, old Dr. Johnson, young Dr. Johnson and women, Dr. Johnson and money, Dr. Johnson and the powers that be, in addition to full-length biographies. So I find him endlessly fascinating. He, as a reader, he attracted a lot of attention. People noticed how he read books, especially once he had any kind of renown. People knew that he was associated with books and reading and writing. He was, again, to use that phrase, a public intellectual. So people paid attention when he read, and they noticed how fast he read. And also that he not only didn't subvocalize, but scorned it. Scorned the idea of it that has come up on this channel many, many times, where when you're reading a text with your eyes, you are also sounding it out in your head, so that you're not reading any faster than you could read it out loud, which is, for most people, about a third as fast as if you didn't read it out loud. You just have to stop that habit. And Johnson never had that habit, so he did not subvocalize and scorned it. Said it used to tell people, well, with my nervous tics and my eyesight, it can be a little bit of labor for me to read this book, but I don't want you to read it to me, because I can read much faster than I can hear. I'd be interested to see DeMaria. I've read before. I'll be interested to see what little bits and pieces he draws together about Johnson as a reader. Okay, then I found a very old book. I have had this once before. It's inscribed from 1919, but I think the book is earlier than that. Yeah, the book is 1915. This is by Kate Ryan, and it is Old Boston Museum Days. And it's a memoir of Boston theater life at the end of the 19th century. And it's wonderful. It's sparkling with anecdote and fun and warm. And I could swear that I wrote about this book. I had a copy of this once upon a time. This is very much a restock. I don't know what became of my old copy, but I could swear that I wrote a piece about this for my old literary blog, Steve Reads. So I will have to ask David Murphy if he can find that, because I certainly can't. I've given up even trying. I just ask him. I feel certain that I've written about this, but it's a wonderful snapshot of an old Boston. It is a Steve book. It just quintessentially. Okay, then speaking of Sherlock Holmes, I found this. This is a library copy, I think, of the complete Sherlock Holmes. But somebody took the. There was an older version of this. It had this Victorian cover there. Somebody put this cover on a naked hardcover, in, I guess, a kind of maybe library binding. I don't really know what this edition is. This looks like something out of a library, but there's nothing on it at all. And this is the stories in double columns from the Strand magazine with the original Sidney Paget illustrations. And the thing about those, when you find a volume with those illustrations, the volumes like that are a dime a dozen. You can find them. But depending on the printing press that was used, the pictures may be dark, in which case a lot of the detail that Paget put in them will be missing. So I was very happy to see that here the pictures are, if anything, lighter than I'm used to them being. And so full of detail. And, as a what Jason Harrigan used to refer to as a reading copy of the complete Sherlock Holmes, I'll gladly take this. I have the complete Sherlock Holmes, but I'll gladly take it. Then these next ones are restocks. Like there's this one, for instance. This is David Donald. This is his great book, Charles Sumner and the Rights of Man, about the great Boston statesman, Charles Sumner. I did a video about this years ago. My previous copy was a ratty old hardcover. I did my best to shore it up. I did my best to give it a second life. I did give it a second life. I did reread it and re-annotate it. But even so, the binding was giving out. The text block was coming off from the spine. So I needed another copy, and whereas in a normally used bookstore I would never see one, at the Brattle I will. I knew that I would. So I just held on to my old one, with a rubber band around it, and came up with this one. The old video that I did about this book was years ago. I'll try to remember to link it to this video. I was reinforcing the cover with clear plastic packing tape in order to shore up the book. Somehow I also shored up the place where the book attaches to the spine in an attempt to keep it together. And while I was reinforcing it, I was also telling you the story of Charles Sumner. So if I remember, I'll leave a link to that down below. I've wanted another copy of this, though, so that was great. And then these last two, find of the day, definitely $3 a piece, find of the day. This is 25 years. This is a 2-volume memoir by Viscount Grey of Falodon. Simply 25 years, Grey of Falodon. And Grey of Falodon was a British statesman, worked in the Foreign Office forever and ever and ever. Set a lot of British policy. He was extremely well known in his day, but he is forgotten now, except maybe for one turn of phrase that he had right at the brink of the First World War, when he said, "The lights are going out all across Europe, and we shall not see them lit again in our lifetime." People had cause to remember that line once the war that Grey himself did not foresee and did not forestall had enveloped all of Europe. I find him fascinating. I think these sorts of things, prepositional phrases, they happen naturally. You can't force them. Some people have wanted to force them, but you can't. And Grey is one of only two people from the 20th century to have one. He's a far more minor figure than Lawrence of Arabia. But Grey of Falodon is how he was known in his own life, and how he was known for a generation after that. And I find him a fascinating figure. I absolutely love reading about him. He's in a whole bunch of memoirs and histories that I have. But I also like reading him. I have pretty much everything he wrote. All the books that he published, I mean. There's probably a gigantic literary archive that no one has ever bothered to consult. I don't know that Viscount Grey has had a biography in the last 70 years, which seems a terrible shame. But I have his book on hunting. I have his book on birds. I have his book on reflections of Falodon. And now, thankfully, I have this. I once had this 2-volume set. I'm pretty sure I've shown it in library tours on this channel, but not with the dust jackets, much less these nice coverings that somebody put on them. And those old hardcovers fell apart. I go back to Viscount Grey, so they fell apart. All it would take is one cross-referencing trip through, memoirs of Winston Churchill, and then memoirs of Cecil Spring Rice, and then or the Wyndham sisters. And then suddenly I'm back at 25 years and I'm tearing the hell out of the old copies that I have. So those are long gone. Those hardcovers are long gone. And the only reason I let them go, of course, they were falling apart. They weren't of any use to me anymore. Tufts of pages were coming out. And I told myself, you'll see this again. The Brattle will have it, and no one will want it but you. So, just wait. The Brattle will provide. And it did. So I can now reread these. These are in much better shape than the originals that I had. So there you go. Very odd, very varied Brattle trip. We have 25 Years by Gray of Faladon. We have Charles Sumner and the Rights of Man. Charles Sumner has a new biography that's out now, but Donald is better. He did 2 volumes on Charles Sumner, and reading the 2 of them together is an amazing experience. We have The Complete Sherlock Holmes with the Sidney Paget illustrations. We have Old Boston Museum Days by Kate Ryan, a wonderful book. I'd love to find it with a dust jacket, but I'm not pushing my luck. Then Robert de Maria, a study of Samuel Johnson and the reading life. Nero Wolfe of West 35th Street by Baron Gould, writing about Wolfe instead of Sherlock Holmes. Another Saint novel to add to the small stack of them that I have. And 2 Robert Benchleys. 2 of his little funny thing happened to me on the way to the elevator type things. Benchley Beside Himself, and After 1903 What? That I will reread. I will give them another try. I have a suspicion that at least at the beginning, unless Benchley casts a spell on me that he never has before, it will be Glue S. Williams' illustrations that will be pulling me through. I don't know how Benchley himself would have thought of that. Williams would have loved it. So I will give it another try. So this spans the whole spectrum. Sherlock Holmes, I know backwards and forwards, but it's nice to have this edition. Dr. Johnson, I know as a reader, I'll be interested to see what this author has to say. I doubt very much that de Maria knows more about Johnson than I do. Maybe even I might even go so far as to say I doubt he knows more about Johnson the reader than I do. So it's not going to be a question of learning things. It's going to be a question of what threads does he pull together. And the Charles Sumner book and the Gray of Faladon books, they're great. I've wanted to replace those volumes, so that is wonderful. A pretty good trip. So I'm going to wrap this up for now. That was a Brattle trip for July. I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.